Jesse Minter has officially arrived as Baltimore Ravens head coach, and he is on a roll.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome in to the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. And thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If it's somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage for you here on Locked On Ravens. And on today's show, Jesse Minter, he's on fire, officially the Baltimore Ravens head coach, and he made it officially official with his first press conference. Also, we'll dive into Minter being on fire with some of these staff decisions and interviews he's getting for coordinator spots. And then we'll also dive into what Eric DeCosta had to say at the press conference alongside Jesse Minter's comments as well. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Here with me today, it's former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail of Missile Training and MissileTraining.com, as well as the Locked On Ravens squad. Showing Q, I saw you in those pictures. You were out there at the castle. You were sitting. I don't know where you were sitting, but you had a front row seat to Jesse Minter's press conference. What was it like being there? What was the energy like? And how was it being at the castle for Jesse Minter's inaugural press conference?
So again, in full disclosure, I didn't go as, Qadry Ismail, podcaster / WJZ guy. I went as a Ravens legend, and there were a couple of us that were invited to participate to welcome in Jesse Minter as, former Raven players. And again, it was so cool because obviously I saw some of my teammates, but I also saw some of the gentlemen that have come through those doors that when I was a part of the WBAL broadcast, and really just, throughout the entirety of the early portions of John Harbaugh's tenure here, I was bumping in and dapping up a whole bunch of dudes. And it was really cool just kind of sitting back, talking shop and seeing what's going on with a lot of the guys. Some of the guys, for example, Ray Rice, he was talking to Terrence West about coaching his son's team and what that looked like, and being able to coach at a high school level. Torrey Smith, of course, he and his foundation, I mean, they got kids now that are in the college ranks and getting ready to potentially go into the pro ranks. So just the whole flow of where guys are at in their lives, it was really cool. But yeah, from a aspect of seating, it was really cool that they had us, the legends players, probably in the second row, third row, and active players were right there, and of course Bashadi. And it was funny because Bashadi was like, "Man, it's the first time I'm sitting down here in the front row as opposed to sitting up on the podium." And you can see like his whole energy is just like, I am chilling. And one of the things that I took from his press conference when it came to letting John go that I saw today was this idea of, I am not trying to be Robert Kraft. I am not trying to be Jerry Jones. I am going to enjoy this process. And we saw, you and I, we obviously talked about it months ago at the owners meeting when we were sitting there listening to him. He was like, yeah, this is a hobby rather than this is a job for John. And he was like, yeah, I don't care about the future. I'm caring about now. Because before, remember, it was about how you build out a team and all the things. And, I remember he was so proud of getting rid of Anquan Bolden and, building the team through what they were able to do because of letting Anquan go. Of course, there were us in the media that, felt like that was the incorrect decision. So be it, he can do those things. But you didn't feel that. And so today in the Minter, come in, take the picture, and like, huh, I'm gonna sit down here and I'm like, yeah,
We'll get a little bit more into what, some of Jesse's answers were and your analysis on those cues as the show goes on. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really good first impression. I also saw on the picture you were up there on the podium for, you had Locked On Ravens squad. So you had Nick on the left and you on the right, or maybe it was switched around, but you got like
yes,
Locked On Ravens squad show front and center with Jesse there. So that's good. Look at that. Look at Locked On Ravens representation right there. But a couple of interesting tidbits dropped yesterday, Q, that I want to talk about with you here. One of them being that the Ravens, according to Adam Schefter, have requested to interview former Ravens defensive back, and currently he's with the Broncos as an assistant head coach and defensive pass game coordinator, Jim Leonhard, who was in Baltimore for a year in 2008, and someone who is widely considered one of the great younger up-and-coming coaches defensively in this league. He was in the running for the Chargers DC job before they went in a different direction. He's considered a prime candidate for the Bills defensive coordinator job as well at the time of this recording. I think this is an awesome request here. Again, request doesn't mean you're hiring the guy, but there have already been a couple of high-level requests from Jesse Minter, a couple of high-level hires on his staff, and it just feels like even though this is his first go-around building out an NFL staff, seems like he's kind of searching in all the right places for these guys and knows what he's looking for. And I think in some of his answers on Thursday, Q, you could kind of sense that, yeah, he has a lot of this stuff put together while also learning on the fly.
Well, I think if we learned anything from Mike McDonald, it was we're going to do things our way in our generation compared to what the traditional way was with coaching and coaching staffs. And I think going to the collegiate ranks, obviously he was at Vanderbilt, gave him a chance to cut his teeth as a DC at a SEC conference school. From there, you go to Michigan, you figure out yourself further within the Mike McDonald way, but then he leaves, you get back into that seat, you bring yourself up to national prominence, and you're trying to motivate these young players and these guys and how to connect with them and get a groove of how to be the best versions of themselves on and off the field. Now, with that said, your staff should be a reflection of you. And I think that is where you start to look around in those circles and you just see a different player. You see a different coach with those players. Jim Leonhard, one of the biggest praises I can say for him, Jim Leonhard was a poor man's Ed Reed. When I was covering the Ravens, like Jim, would put things in position and guys in position, and was a D coordinator on the football field. I was like, how the heck did they make that play? And then, of course, because of the access that I had at the time, I'm like, yo, so break it down. What happened? He's like, yo, man, that was all Jim Leonhard. Jim kind of, was studying the film and saw how the defense was broken down, and boom, he just knew here's the correction, and it turned in their favor. I always kept that in the back of my mind. So when he went through his process, obviously at Wisconsin and the whole 9 yards, and then clearly he's in the pro ranks now and he's getting an opportunity to get an interview, it makes sense to me in that realm of the Mike McDonald, Jesse Mentor kind of way of, hey, doing things and thinking outside the box, but also developing those now current day player coaching ability. So I'm excited that Jim Leonhard has an opportunity to sit and interview, and hopefully, he gets a chance to show out. I'd love to see him back in the building. I think that would be a great hire.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Him, Joe Cullen, it's about familiarity, kind of
Joe
going
Cullen,
back to
yes.
that Ravens well there. And again, with Jesse Minter officially confirming he will call plays, this would be a DC job where you are more so going to be an overseer and, like you said, putting guys in position, but not making those calls on the field specifically. But even still, I think that if Jesse Minter can go out there and get Jim Leonhard, I mean, that would be an incredible get for this Baltimore Ravens defense. Now, one thing that we do know for sure now is we got the news yesterday before Jesse Minter's press conference, Mike Garafolo reporting that Ravens assistant Randy Brown, obviously special teams guru over there in Baltimore, he's been in Baltimore since John Harbaugh's first season. Mike Garafolo reporting that he has agreed to remain in Baltimore. Obviously, Randy Brown's overseen a lot of great special teams play from that unit, kicker, punter, long snapper as well. How big is it that Randy Brown is staying for some continuity on that special team staff? Obviously, Chris Horton is now off to the Giants, but Randy Brown is someone that I know a lot of people credit a lot of the Ravens special team success to what Randy Brown's been able to do.
Randy, when it first came out that there was going to be Billy Cundiff and Justin Tucker kicking competition, and then obviously Justin just takes off and does what he does. But then also the refining of Justin's game. Plus, you also look at the refining of back then what amounted to the Wolfpack. The growth of the special teams within the kicking game, Sam then being able to pass the torch on to Jordan Stout. Jordan taking a minute to figure it out, but you clearly, see that he did figure it out and had an amazing campaign this previous season, I should say. That was in large part to the chemistry of what Randy Brown brings to the table. So you also look at a young Tyler Luke, and for Tyler, we know you missed the kick. Would have made one more week of suspense for John Harbaugh. We knew he was going to get fired. The owner said he was going to get fired. So we would have had a fun show talking about playoffs, at least, on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Ravens Squad Show. However, we have the compensatory pick corniness of the offseason now. Mother of pearl. At least, KO, you got a chance to get the haircut.
Yes.
And everything looks really cool. We appreciate that. All right. I digress. So that's it, Randy Brown, for him to continue to work with a young Tyler Luke. I think that was important for them to keep him on the staff.
Yeah, it's definitely important. And, with the success that he's had, it would have been a loss to lose him from that aspect of just what he's been able to do with some of these players. And like you mentioned, yes, we know Tyler missed the kick, but like you mentioned with Jordan Stout, took him a couple of years. Jordan had okay years. His first couple had some good moments and some pretty bad ones, but sticking through that, sticking with techniques, learning new things. I have that confidence level in Tyler as well. That, Tyler had ups and downs this year. But I think that with the continuity that Randy Brown brings, obviously, hopefully you bring back Jordan Stout, and obviously with Nick Moore there signing that extension, shout out to Nick. Hopefully you're able to get the best out of that group again this season with even higher heights than they were able to reach last year in certain aspects. But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll dive into some of what Jesse Minter had to say, because I think there was a clear message that was sent by Jesse. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're back in the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still here with you on this Friday edition of the show. Talking Ravens football. Again, appreciate everybody for making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have that 5 days a week plus more of the Ravens coverage and content for your regular shows Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. But we also do have some bonus episodes on the weekend when there are headlines, and there are plenty of headlines right now, so maybe a couple bonus episodes this weekend, so be sure you stay tuned. But we also have instant reactions after every single piece of Ravens big news and during games, and we had one yesterday after the Jesse Minter press conference. Also, we have watch-alongs during games, as well as Locked On Ravens Squad Show. You can find Q and I over there, as well as Sam and Joku twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. You always got to check in for the Q rants on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Plus, you get them here too on Locked On Ravens, so you get double the Q rants wherever you tune in with Q on the show. But we also have the Locked On Everydayer Club, where for Locked On Ravens, that Everydayer Club, you can check out what you get in that. It's just extra stuff that we just don't have time to do on the show anymore. So weekly Q&As, you get one-on-one text access with me, ad-free episodes, etc. You can find that link in the description below, as well as on the Locked On website on the Locked On Ravens page. All right, Q, something that I think from Jesse Minter's press conference, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it. I thought his opening statement honestly set a really big tone from the jump in this thing, where he said, quote, "We will create standards that match the goals we want to achieve. Our plan will be built on being at our best late in the season into the playoffs." And this was a question that was asked early in the press conference about, one of the reasons Jesse is sitting there is because of the lack of playoff success, and the Ravens clearly wanting to maximize that. And again, the standards that Jesse Minter is going to create can be in a positive environment and reflect the goals, where I think at times, Q, last year, we were all kind of wondering, especially with John Harbaugh's comments before the season about that Super Bowl or bust mentality, where he dismissed it almost. It kind of left me wondering, like, all right, what are the goals at? What is John Harbaugh feeling? What is that messaging being passed down to the team? Obviously, Harbaugh's goals were probably, hey, yeah, we want to be successful in the playoffs and all that as well. But it felt refreshing to hear it from Jesse Minter. And I thought that message itself was very clear of like, look, we're going to have these standards. And I think much like Eric DeCosta has shown throughout his tenure as general manager, if it's not working, you're out of here. It's not working. I feel like that's what Jesse's saying there. And I feel like that's why those two working together in partnership, I feel like they're aligned on that.
Yeah, I think part of what Jesse has been through with technically working with both Harbaughs, knowing what success looks like from a collegiate level at the highest of the collegiate level, knowing what it looks like working with Pro Bowl type quality players, getting the most out of them, and now able to put your own stamp on things. The biggest thing is that, yeah, we're going to show up in the big moments when it's time to show up in the big moments. And that's something that John Harbaugh failed to do. That's why he's no longer here. Time and time again in big moments, there was some level of a letdown, and some coaching strategy, some lack of creativity, whatever it might be, the feel for what it would take to win. John could not get it done. And so therefore we have now Jesse Minter. Jesse was clear in his approach to making sure he gets things done when it comes to the hiring of his staff and making sure that he has his players in the right place. I think, if it's interesting though, because I think this is where EDC now has to look at it and be like, boy, I know we're, quote unquote, answering to Steve Bisciotti in my lane, and Jesse will answer to Steve Bisciotti in his lane, and it's a collaborative effort. But Jesse's new. For EDC, man, that Senior Bowl scouting, whoever your pro days you're going to go see scouting, the formulation of the list of players that you can draft, and then you're looking at the development of free agency. Like, this is like arguably his biggest offseason of his career, defining offseason of his career, because you don't have the fall guy in John Harbaugh if it doesn't come about.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big thing now where that shield is gone. You're exactly correct. The fall guy is gone, so it's big for Eric DeCosta, and we now know that we'll talk a little bit more about what DeCosta had to say in the final part of the show. But both of those guys will be reporting to ownership, as Eric DeCosta indicated in his answer. Said that that's the formula that's worked. They won 2 Super Bowls that way, so we shall see. But Jesse Minter also gave, I guess, a little bit of an update on the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator situations and what's going on there. He said both the searches are going really well. He said they're very far along as well, which is interesting. And he was hoping he could maybe share some news down the line. I don't know when that's going to be, but he said, quote, "I'm looking for leaders and connectors and relationship builders and schematic expertise, but most importantly, guys that the players believe in." And that was a big theme for Jesse. It's very player oriented with him. He wants to make sure that everybody in the building is benefiting one another. And that includes, hey, how can we get the best out of these guys and the most out of these guys? And it's not just about, do you know your X's and O's and all that? It's about, how do you connect with our players? I thought that was really big too. And we also just got news that Davis Webb, an offensive coordinator candidate for the Ravens, is withdrawing his name from the Raiders head coaching job. So that essentially means that either he could go back to Denver and get that promotion, because we know the Broncos fired their offensive coordinator, or maybe that is in Baltimore, because we know Sean Payton calls the plays in Denver. So maybe if he wants a OC job where he's calling the plays, maybe Jesse Minter can cook again and get Davis Webb in a building. But he seems to be confident in the searches right now. And look, based off of the requests that we've seen from Jesse Minter, I feel pretty confident too.
I mean, honestly, I think his charisma, I think when he talks about connections and connecting, those are refreshing words to hear. I know that the style of coach connecting to the current day player, that player he wants to know a little bit more of the why, rather than just blind following and or like, oh, okay, you tell me to do it, I'm just going to do it. That doesn't work in today's game. And so, yeah, like, Davis Webb, I'm sure he probably saw some dysfunction over at the Raiders and was like, nah, I'm good. Oh, Sean, you fired our boy because you threw him under the bus on the 4th and 2. You called that play. Nobody else did. We ain't want you to call it. Could have took the points. Oh, you could have had the play that I thought we would have got 2 yards, but no. So all that we'll never know. However, we do know this, that from a bigger picture standpoint, when it does come to it, the connectivity, and I'd be curious if it is a scenario where he will get an opportunity to come back to this and be able to have another interview. We'll see. I'm now my interest is up, because I was like, man, it seems like the only person left is, and I don't say that this is a slight, but Declan Doyle, which I think he would, be a fine DC or OC rather, just because of me seeing the style of the offense and the spectacular play of Caleb the Iceman Williams goes hand in hand with Lamar Jackson's skill set. I mean, I think he would be able to just look at it and be like, all right, cool. I coached him, I can coach him, and I think my offense would gel really well.
Yeah, and again, it's about finding guys that obviously know what they're doing in the X's and O's category, but also have that charisma. Like I feel, again, Jesse Minter, he got up there. He wasn't this like rah motivational. Yeah, we're gonna do this and that and this. Again, it's different hearing a message from Jesse than what it was the past 18 years from John Harbaugh, because that's what we've been listening to for the past 18 years in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, it's changed a little bit over those 18 years, but it's a new way of what the messaging is going to be, how Jesse operates, how Jesse does his thing. And so I'm curious to see what the rest of the staff is filled out like. We've already gotten a couple of reported hires, which, I really like personally, but as the rest of the hires come through, seems like so far Jesse's done a really good job, and hopefully that can continue. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we'll keep talking about what Jesse had to say, as well as some of the things Eric DeCosta had to say about the details surrounding not only the head coaching job, but the coordinator positions as well. So be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot coming your way on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job posting, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still rocking out with you here on this Friday edition of the show. Be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens content and coverage. Q, one of the things that I think got a lot of people fired up when he said it in Jesse Minter was when he was talking a little bit about John Harbaugh. And, you know, obviously Jesse has a ton of respect for John Harbaugh. You know, he revealed that John actually texted Jesse and said, I think they should hire you, which, you know, was a pretty cool moment, I'm sure, for Jesse when that happened. But he said, quote, really just take the foundation in place and build on it and make it better and put my own spin on it and not try to be John Harbaugh, not try to be Jim Harbaugh, be myself, connect with everybody, make it about all of us. And again, that's that thing. Like it's about all of us. It's about everybody, not just players, not just coaches, but everybody surrounding this organization. And that's what he said when he first walked in the castle on Wednesday. He's like, I'm excited to make it we. And I think that's a really awesome message to get everybody bought in early. But again, the thing that everybody caught on to was he's not trying to be like John Harbaugh. He's not trying to be like Jim Harbaugh. And I'm sure, you know, when a team has a successful culture like the Ravens have had for so many years, there might be pressure for some guys to say, all right, I'm going to take certain things here and certain things there. And I'm not saying Jesse won't do that to some extent, but, you know, Jesse, from him being up there, Q, I thought he had full confidence in himself. And that to me was a really big thing where it felt like he understands. And that's kind of what he said when he said he was calling offensive plays. He's like, I don't think I'd be sitting here if that wasn't the goal for me. And he said that was a big strength of his and something that he thinks he can add to while also feeling confident he can do all the head coaching duties while also calling the play. So that confidence to me, it exuded out of him, even though he wasn't like this fired up type of guy or any of that. I still felt like hearing him speak, you could tell how much he believes in himself and believes in the organization that he now represents.
So the term leader of men, the way in which you command your own inner confidence, it is pushed out into your other coaches. The way in which they portray themselves is pushed out onto the players and so on. And so that symbiotic relationship is not guaranteeing wins, but it sure in the heck helps. Because I know one thing, Mike Vrabel has the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl after prior year, what did they only win like 4 games or something? And so when you look at the connection and the confidence of yourself within the organization, the Texans, my God, man, they had their backup quarterback play about a 4-game span there, and they won them. Why? Because their defense was crushing it. Why? Because their head coach had swagger and confidence, and everybody believed in one another. I think the same thing can be said about what we're looking at with Jesse Minter. Like, he has that opportunity to get his staff, but also get guys to like, all right, you know, you're a leader of men. All right, bet.
When you look at a guy like Jesse Minter and all of the stuff that we know he brings to the table. He's turned around multiple defenses, both at the college level and the pro level. I mean, as a player, that would give me confidence first and foremost, but also to have that belief, because you're right, like it all trickles down and how a guy, operates and goes about his business. Like it's little things like that that do matter. It's not just about, all right, we're going to show up on Sunday and play a game. It's the whole week of preparation. I know you know that, Q, but it's about every little thing that goes into it. And I'm interested too, because Eric DeCosta did have a couple of things to say about just how this whole thing went. And again, Jesse Minter, by the way, he was very complimentary of Lamar Jackson, called him the best player in the NFL. Has already said that he's had multiple conversations with Lamar, and it's been great to get to know him and creating a team identity that allows him to thrive in, which again, just speaks to exactly what we were just talking about with the player empowerment and whatnot. But Eric DeCosta talked about how the head coach process went for the Ravens with the players. He was asked specifically how Lamar Jackson was involved and, answered it with other players, didn't name anybody by name, including Lamar. But he said, quote, "We had a small group of players kind of split evenly on offense and defense. We had some guys on Zoom, some guys that were in person. They met with all the finalists." And that's kind of what I think Steve Bisciotti was alluding to during his press conference, is like, yeah, guys are going to have say in this, but essentially the power lies with me, is what he essentially said there. But DeCosta also said that players are also still involved, some of them at least are still involved in the Ravens coordinator search and other hires. So it's not just one guy making a decision for an entire organization here. It is truly a group effort when it comes to the hires. I like that the players are involved in it. I think that their opinions do matter, but I also understand that, yes, like what Steve said, the ultimate power does lie with whether it's Jesse or Eric or Ozzy or Steve himself. Like those are the guys that make the final decisions, but you take everything into account when it comes to these decisions.
So it kind of aligns basically what the organization feels is a functional cultural value to honor and respect. And you can see that synergy, a good synergy. And what I mean by that is if Steve is saying, listen, I'm all about hearing everyone's opinion and genuinely making a decision off of said opinions. And, for Eric DeCosta to feel that way, to Ozzy feeling that way, to Sashi feeling that way, to obviously now Jesse Minter feeling that way. That's the only way it's going to work, when your voice is heard and you're willing to work with one another. And that's the empowerment. That's what you're hoping, will make things go and grow compared to other organizations that are just living off of their legacy, a la, the Dallas Cowboys, who we don't even want to get on another Q rant on that one. But the point is that their ownership on down it's like, what in the world are y'all doing? Yet you can see where the ownership on down here is more in line and consistent.
Yeah, Jesse Minter called Steve Bisciotti the best owner, and I think that was really cool as well. Best owner in sports. He said, quote, "He gives you everything that you need, and there's nobody better to be working for." So he's excited to be in Baltimore. The Ravens are excited to have him, and I'm excited that he's here. The fan base is excited he's here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do over the next maybe a couple days and obviously a couple weeks and couple of months as he continues to build off this staff and build out this roster. But Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on the show. Before I get you out of here, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, you can absolutely find me at missiletraining.com. Missiletraining.com is where you're going to find Qadry Ismail with all his sports performance and human performance movement enhancement. When you're looking for sports performance, Qadry Ismail Missile Training. When you're looking for better human movement, Qadry Ismail Missile Training. Missiletraining.com is where you can interact with me for all your human movement and sports performance needs. WJZ is where you can see me on the television. Cheese. And Alex Glaze and I, along with Grace Grill, we do a phenomenal job working together, getting you guys ready for games, game days, purple pregame shows, and of course, each and every week, Kevin Allstriker and I, we break it all down here. Okay? Locked On Ravens is where we just love to give you all the insight and information. It is the offseason. So Kevin is going to go ahead and talk about the awesomeness of the offseason. I'm just not. I'm going to be waiting for the real stuff when the guys go out there and they're just mixing it up. but he does give us some great insight, and it gives me a chance to back and forth with him on that. And we also have our squad show twice a week. And of course, Sam and Joku, he jumps on for the three of us to sit back and just talk shop, talk some, headlines of what's going on in the National Football League and making it Raven centric. So lots there, but you can check us out here, Locked On Ravens, Squad Show, Locked On, and missiletraining.com.
Yes, Hugh does. He has his hand in a lot of different things. So be sure you go support him and everything he does. Hit the links and follow him everywhere as well on social media. And of course, links will be in the description down below for where you can support Q. But Q, I appreciate you. Thanks again for hopping on. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened today to Locked On Ravens. Coming up, might have some bonus episodes this weekend. Obviously, there's still plenty of headlines to dive into, but if not, of course, we'll be back here on Monday for our regularly scheduled programming. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along and subscribe in audio form, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.